Hello and welcome. I am Tootight Lautrec, the Master Mistress of Glitterature Alley, and here we are once again at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainders section of an unnamed local library, which may or may not have two muscular lions sitting on the front steps, attentively guarding their beloved home, very much like the main character in our final entry for Pulitzer. Who? That's right, today's the last book of the series. So we move from the seriously beautiful 1962 winner of the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, The Edge of Sadness by Edward O'Connor, and we'll nod reverently to William Faulkner's The Reivers, which won the 1963 Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and it's one of the few Faulkners that I have not read, so that could be on my list for something else coming up. And then we'll skip right past 1964 because no prize was awarded that year. And that brings us to 1965 to The Keepers of the House by Shirley and Grau, which won the 1965 Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And before we get into that, let us take a gander at some of the other books that were published in 1964 that did not make the cut. And it's a pretty good list. Herzog by Saul Bellow. If Morning Ever Comes, which was Ann Tyler's first novel. Last Exit to Brooklyn by Hubert Selby Jr., which may be on my reread list pretty soon. The Rector of Justin by Louis Auchincloss. The Shoebird by Eudora Welty. A Single Man by Christopher Isherwood. Sometimes a Great Notion by Ken Kesey. The Two Faces of January by Patricia Highsmith. Up the Down Staircase by Belle Kaufman. The Wapshot Chronicle by John Cheever. With Shuddering Fall, which was Joyce Carol Oates' first novel. And despite all of these highfalutin players, the winner of the 1965 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction goes to The Keepers of the House by Shirley Ann Grau. So Shirley Ann Grau was born July 8th, 1929, and she lived until August 3rd, 2020. She was born in New Orleans, but she spent much of her childhood in Montgomery and Selma, Alabama. She graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Tulane, and she wanted to continue her studies there in English literature to get a PhD, but the chair of the English department told her that he would never hire a woman as a teaching assistant. So Shirley Ann Grau said, forget this, and she skedaddled away from Tulane and promptly began publishing short stories in the New Yorker, the Southern Review, Saturday Evening Post, and other highfalutin places. So there, stupid dean at Tulane University. Most of her work centers around the hypocrisy of race relations in the Deep South, but also she deals a lot with power, class, and love among people of all races. Her writings about race, in fact, inflamed the Ku Klux Klan so much that they burned, or at least tried to burn, a cross on her front lawn. But it never really quite caught fire, and it just sort of fizzled, making a little mark on her lawn, which she found quite amusing, because she was one tough cookie, I have to say. So despite the scorched grass, one day she was at home when the Pulitzer Prize committee called to inform her that she had won the Pulitzer Prize, or her book had won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And she said to them, yeah, and I'm the Queen of England. And she hung up on them because she thought it was a prank. But they called her publisher, and her publisher ended up calling her and saying that, no prank, you really won this prize. So I like her immensely just from those two stories. The Keepers of the House is about, spoiler alert, a house. Specifically, a house that has been in the Howland family for many generations in the Deep South. And this is how it starts. Nope. This is how it starts. A few pages before that. And this is Abigail Howland, the present-day owner of the house, who is speaking. November evenings are quiet and still and dry. The frost-stripped trees and the bleached grasses glisten and shine in the small light. In the winter-emptied fields, granite outcroppings gleam, white and stark. The bones of the earth, old people call them. In the deepest fold of the land, to the southwest where the sun went down solid and red not long ago, the Providence River reflects a little gray light. The river is small this time of year, drought-shrunken. It turns back the sky, dully, like an old mirror. So right away we get a sense of the environment that we're in, the time of year, the beauty that is surrounding this house. And she goes on, Abigail goes on, like this just one page later. As I stand there in the immaculate evening, I do not find it strange to be fighting an entire town, a whole county. I am alone. Yes, of course I am. But I am not particularly afraid. The house was empty and lonely before. I just did not realize it. It's no worse now. I know that I shall hurt as much as I have been hurt. I shall destroy as much as I have lost. It's a way to live, you know. It's a way to keep your heart ticking under the sheltering arches of your ribs. And that's enough for now. So, what a setup. We know something's going to happen, but we just don't know when or how. And this voice of Abigail is just stunning, and in the way that she looks at the beauty around her, and she sets us up for what may happen in the future. But before she takes us on that journey, we get this novel that is told in a series of chapters, beginning with the current keeper of the house, Abigail, whose mother was also called Abigail, so I'll call her Abigail II. Abigail II tells the story of many, many generations of the Howlands, starting with one William Howland, and it goes all the way down the line to Abigail's own grandfather, who was the fifth William Howland, so I'll call him William V, whose first wife, Abigail I, died very young, and left him one daughter, who they called Abigail. So Abigail II's mother was William Howland's wife. And despite the exertions of all the women in the town that grew up around the Howland house, a town owned mostly by the Howlands, William V takes a very, very, very long time. He stays single for a very long time. He sees no reason to get married again because he loved Abigail I so deeply. Until one day he meets a woman who is half black and half white, and he takes her into his home, first as a housekeeper, and then as a bedmate, and then as the mother of 3 more of his children. Now, this union in the Deep South is an open secret in the town, but because the Howlands are quite prominent and own most of the town, it's just a secret and everyone stays quiet about it, and it doesn't become a problem until William V dies and his granddaughter, Abigail II's husband, runs for political office. And then the manure hits the windmill, so to speak. So, but until we get there, the book starts at a very, very slow burn through the family history and the ways in which the house and the town around it are built up by the Howland family. And by slow burn, I mean really quite slow. It's a book that is very highly detailed, but it's not bogged down by this detail, much like other books that we've read in this series, for instance, Lamb in His Bosom, which was nothing but detail for no reason whatsoever. This book, the detail makes you feel as if you are really there in the moment. So you're following along with these characters, and not only is it highly detailed about the beauty of the land, but you feel that the land is a character in the novel, much as the house is the character in the novel, and they're all integrally related to the characters in the novel. So it is not for naught that all this description occurs. It's really done very well. So I very rarely felt bogged down by the excessive detail, but it is quite a slow burn at start. In fact, what I found really remarkable about this book was the pacing of it, this slow, steady building emotionally until the end, where it just starts to get more and more and more interesting, and it's kind of like an exponential curve. And it didn't feel false. It starts out this slow, steady burn, and it builds up to a kind of a heart in your mouth and gluteus maximus on the end of your seat ending, and it's really quite a trip. And as a reader, I often find that the 3/4 mark in a novel is a very difficult place for me as a reader, and it seems for some of the writers that we've encountered. There seems to be either a speeding up, a rush to get to the end to tie things up that doesn't seem really quite genuine, or there's a certain kind of exhaustion where it seems like the writer has used up all of their ideas and all of their themes, and kind of there's this sort of a slump at that point, and we sort of totter toward the end. That does not happen here. I will give you a couple of examples of where it does happen in some of the books that we've read in the series. In the Travels of Jamie McPheeters, we go through this journey, and we know that they're going to California, but by the time we reach the end of the journey, there's a lull during which I sensed that there would be some other event to kind of wrap it all up. And it did, but it didn't feel to me necessarily of a piece with the rest of the book. Similarly, in Years of Grace by Margaret Ayer Barnes, the culmination of the novel in the later years of the main character's life felt to me contrived and really not quite believable. So it's books like this where the 3/4 mark tends to lose it, so to speak. That, again, did not happen with Keepers of the House. There is a constant but slow at the beginning, ramping up, and till we get to the end, which feels to me like an inevitable ending, but surprising at the same time, and actually very satisfying, especially when we take this hint from the beginning that something is going to happen, and indeed something does happen. So I found it a very satisfying read, and I found the pace to be very interesting, different from other novels that I've read, and really quite impressive. So what kept me reading, or what stopped me reading? As I said, it did take a little while to rev up, but I wasn't bothered by it because the beauty of the land and the details of the family kept me interested, and I was interested in the people who were being described. So I was happy to follow along steadily to see where the story might lead. And then, as I say, the last quarter of the book, really, I couldn't put it down by that point. So, do I have qualms? I really don't have very many qualms. Grau, I guess that's how you pronounce the name, Shirley and Grau, depicts racial troubles in the South with brutal honesty, and she casts a cold eye on racism and its hypocrisy and its ugly history in the South, and she does so very, very, very well. Despite my outfit, it doesn't take place in the 60s, but I thought it was published in 1965, and I got new blue eyeshadow, so I thought I'd put this out for you here. But there's this sense of a modern woman in this. Shirley Ann Grau's voice is very contemporary, and it's very compelling, and it's really quite charming as well. She's a strong, muscular writer, and it's really, really very well done. It's very well done. In fact, it may be, well, it is. It's in my top 5, I would have to say, which, if you're asking if I recommend it, yes, I do recommend it. In terms of the Tootight Lautrec Wonder Award for Forgotten Pulitzers, well, I have a short list, and this is on the short list, but I will go down the short list in chronological order. There's from 1927, Louis Bromfield's Early Autumn. From 1930, Oliver Lafarge's Laughing Boy. From 1935, Josephine Winslow Johnson's Now in November. 1962's Edwin O'Connor book, The Edge of Sadness, and now in 1965, Shirley and Grau with The Keepers of the House. And so, the Tootight Lautrec Forgotten Pulitzer Wonder Award goes to, I can't really decide, but I do have another short, that was a long list, I have a short list. The shortest list is Early Autumn, Now in November, and The Edge of Sadness. And I will have to say that I'm going to have a tie here and say that Now in November and The Edge of Sadness tie for the Wonder Award, the Tootight Lautrec Forgotten Pulitzer Wonder Award. Now in November and The Edge of Sadness. This comes in third or fourth or fifth. I would say probably fifth. It's good, but I don't know if I would rush to reread it. So that is all we have for the Forgotten Pulitzers. All of the other Pulitzer Prize winners, I have either heard of the author or I have heard of the book, and so that does it for this series. And now I am free to read whatever I wish. And I had said before that I'm going to begin a new series that I think I'm going to be calling Reading as a Writer, and I'll be defining what I mean by that. Reading as a reader is different. Reading as a writer is different. Reading as an aficionado is a third thing, and I'll be reading in all of those ways, just so that, because I do think that everyone on BookTube is a writer, because we produce language to talk about books, and so I'm hoping that this will appeal to people who don't consider themselves writer, but in fact, if you're on BookTube and you're talking about fiction or poetry or other kinds of books, then you are indeed creating language for us to consume. So you are a writer. I'm hoping that will appeal to you. Meanwhile, if I do take a break, I may be inserting some Pulitzer Prize poetry party videos, very short videos about winners of the Pulitzer Prize for poetry, one poem from each year, and just to keep me going on the YouTubes. Until then, I think you know that the world is full of wonder, and it is all around you. Please, whatever you do, pay attention, because you deserve it. Until we meet again, I am Tootight Lautrec. Peace.